Did you know that only 32% of Americans say they have a will? That's an astounding number. Why would you leave this up to someone else to make these kinds of decisions for you? And yet that's exactly what's happening when churches are closing. You're leaving it to the very last few people to shut the door to make the decisions on what's going to happen to the assets. Here you are 60, 70, 80 years old without any plans for what's going to happen as you come near the end. Churches, like people, need a will while you're of sound mind and body to make preparation for what's to come. Most churches are also in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Most churches don't live past 100. In fact, 99% of churches don't make it past 100 years. So what's the plan for the future? How are you going to leverage your assets for the greatest kingdom growth when you shut your doors? Because we're all going to shut our doors someday. And I am just going to plead with you to please be prayerful and intentional about what's going to happen with the assets of your church. I hear stories all the time. Church closed, $10 million piece of property. They gave it to a school in town. They gave it to a library. They gave it to a museum. It's like, it's absolutely mind-blowing and mind-boggling. It's basically just saying, we don't care anymore. Just take it and do something with it. We don't want to think about it anymore. And you're sitting on $1 million, $5 million, $10 million piece of property. And the people in your church history gave and gave and gave to make that thing possible. Often our churches are sitting on prime real estate, downtown, major cities, huge amount of money tied up in these assets. What's going to happen with those resources when the church shuts the door? There are thousands of churches that shut down every year. In 2019, 3,000 churches opened their doors and 4,500 shut their doors. What happened to the assets of those 4,500 churches? What if they had had something in place to help guide them in the process of closing? If you're in the situation of decline, I just want you to know that you haven't done anything wrong. There is no guilt about that. It's just every church is going to enter into that season, and we want to do it ethically, we want to do it morally, and we want to do it with great intentionality. There are good things ahead. How are you going to advance the kingdom with the shutting of the doors? And what I'm seeing out there is that there's not a lot of intentionality in how churches close, often because there was not a lot of intentionality in when churches were operating before they closed. You need to really be thinking about how you're going to end even when you begin. How can you take all that God has done with your congregation, all the gifts that were given, donations that were made, time that was volunteered, pouring into the assets that your congregation has? How are you going to leverage that for future kingdom growth in a way that honors your history and honors your trajectory of the kind of dream and impact that your founding members and even your current members have, and how your church was to impact the community? You can impact the community long after your doors are shut based on how you allocate those funds and the plans that you make for those funds while the church is still living. Your church needs a will. Now, I'm no legal expert. I would definitely get a lawyer involved in this, but you may want to start writing things down, like what kind of commitments do you want to make with the leftover funds that are in the bank and the selling of the property when the church closes? Some people don't realize that when a nonprofit shuts down, that those assets have to be actually given to another nonprofit. The members can't just sell the assets and split the money and keep it themselves. It's a nonprofit. You're not here to make money off of those assets. So begin designating who is going to get the proceeds when this place shuts down, and do it in a very prayerful, communal process with the members of your church. Think about it like signing your organ donation on your driver's license. There can be lives that are saved when your church dies, but only if you're intentional about it. If you just say, well, just give it to the first person who walks by, I just feel like that's pretty irresponsible. And yet I hear the stories all the time of churches that had no plan, no intentionality, didn't leverage the resources. Who they gave it to was not in alignment with the beliefs of the church or the history of the church. It's kind of disturbing in a sense. We have to be responsible with these assets and resources. And I'm not telling you what to do with it. I'm not saying it should only go here or there. I'm just saying it only makes sense to me that the assets would go into something that was aligned with the initial and the current vision and purpose of that congregation. It just only makes sense that would be the case. If you want to reach your community, give it to things that are going to reach the community. If you want to reach the community with the gospel and not just backpacks and lunches, which backpacks and lunches are very important, but if you want to have also a spiritual impact as you are engaging in those kinds of ministries, then you're going to want to give it to organizations that are making those kinds of spiritual impacts. So how might you come up with something like this? Well, again, pray, 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 pray. Ask God for clarity, ask God for guidance, ask God to send the right people by in order for this to make the most sense. Take it before the congregation. Have complete transparency. Nothing sneaky, nothing that, nobody knows what's going on. Complete transparency. Great communication. Just put it all out there in front of people and don't worry about it. Get the feedback. Start listening. Hear what people have to say, the kinds of things that they might want this money and these resources to be allocated to. And as you begin praying about this and engaging in these conversations, as you begin listening, then you're going to be having some testimonies that you can share with the broader congregation that you've been listening for God's leading, and then these are the kind of things that God is bringing before you. Then take it all back to the church again. Pray about it again. Process it again. Talk about it again. This is healthy. It's cathartic for the soul of a church that's in decline to think about, yes, we're in decline, and yes, we may not be here in 6 months, a year, 5 years, but we also know that a great amount of good is going to happen with our closing. Again, it's like organ donation, that someone got a heart, someone got a lung, someone got a liver or a kidney. Document all of this. Write it down. Make a plan. Put it somewhere where people can find it. And I just really want to say at the conclusion here that if you're in that situation and you need some guidance on what it looks like to allow the close of the facility to be the birth of new things, then I would like to talk with you about that. And I have some other people who deal with this on a regular basis who would like to talk with you about how to process this, what it looks like, and how to take the kind of steps where you can be the most responsible, best steward, and have the most kingdom impact for many, many years to come with these amazing resources that God has blessed the church with. There's an amazing financial rotation that is happening in the kingdom, and we want those funds to be leveraged for the kingdom, not just for some secular nonprofit endeavor in our towns, unless those secular nonprofit endeavors happen to align with the vision and mission of how your church is supposed to be impacting the community. So let's have a conversation. My email's at the bottom. Please reach out if you have any questions about this. I'll get you connected with the kind of people who help navigate churches through these kinds of things. So appreciate you watching, and I've got some big plans I'm going to be sharing with you very shortly that are very exciting. Be on the lookout for that. And if nothing more, watch another video about churches and the challenges that we're facing.